Section 5.2, solve inequalities using multiplication and division. So in the last section, we talked about solving inequalities using addition and subtraction, but what about multiplication and division? So first of all, I want you to form a true inequality. If I were to do 10 is greater than negative 4, that's true. So in step A, we're going to add 2 to both sides. So I would get 12 is greater than negative 2. Part B, we're going back to the original inequality in example 1 up here, and we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So I would get 8 is greater than negative 6. That's true. And our first one in part A was also true. Going back to the original, multiply by 2 on both sides. I would get 20 is greater than negative 8. Guess what? Still true. Divide by 2 on both sides. I would get 5 is greater than negative 2. Still true. Multiply by negative 2 on both sides. I would get negative 20 is greater than positive 8. That one is false. Okay. If I were to divide by negative 2 on both sides, I would get negative 5 is greater than positive 2. That's false. So if you take a look in parts A through D compared to parts E through F, the only thing that's different is we perform the operation with a negative. So multiplying or dividing by a negative gives you a false inequality. So in order to make it true, you would need to flip the sign. So if we were to just kind of flip those, we would end up having a true inequality. So 8 would be bigger than negative 20 and 2 is bigger than negative 5. So that's a very important rule you need to remember for solving inequalities. If you ever multiply or divide by a negative, then you need to flip your inequality sign. If I come over here for a quick example, if I had 10x is less than negative 20 and I needed to solve for x, I would need to divide by 10 on both sides. And I would get x is less than negative 2. So just because this 20 is negative doesn't mean I need to flip the sign. Okay, don't get all crazy with those negatives. Whenever you see them, flip the sign. The thing that you're actually dividing by, so we're dividing by this 10. The thing you're dividing or multiplying by needs to be negative. And then you need to flip the sign. So we did not have to flip the sign here because the thing we're dividing by was not negative. So if we look at example 2a, we would need to multiply by 10 on both sides. And then that would give us x is less than 15. So notice that we multiplied by a positive 10, so no flipping. This would be an open circle at 15 going to the left. B, k is being divided by 3.2, so we need to multiply by 3.2 on both sides. Multiply by 3.2. Again, the thing we're multiplying by is still positive, so we don't need to flip the sign. We end up getting k is greater than or equal to negative 64. So this time it is a closed circle at negative 64, and your arrow is pointing to the right. C, to get x by itself, we'd have to divide by negative 3. What are we dividing by? A negative? So we have to flip the sign. So this time, x is greater than negative 9. Open circle at negative 9, pointing to the right. You could always check your answer by plugging in a value. So pick a number that's bigger than negative 9. Well, 0. So if I were to plug in 0 into this inequality, is it still true? So negative 3 times 0 is 0. Is 0 less than 27? Yes, that's still true. So somewhere over here where 0 is, that's in our solution area because of the arrow. So yes, it's still true. D, solving for z, 96 divided by 12 is 8. So we end up getting z is less than or equal to 8. This would be a closed circle at 8, pointing to the left. If we take a look at E, it's 1/5 times W is greater than or equal to negative 9. So we would want to divide to get rid of that 1/5, but the same thing as dividing by a fraction is multiplying by the reciprocal. So we can multiply by 5 on both sides, and we get W is greater than or equal to negative 45. Again, we did not need to flip the sign because the thing we're multiplying by is not negative. So we have a closed circle at negative 45, and our arrow is going to the right. On F, we would need to multiply by negative 0.4 on both sides. Wait. What are we multiplying by? Negative. So we would need to flip the sign. So we get G, flip the sign, is greater than or equal to negative 14. So now we have a closed circle at negative 14, opening to the right. All right, enjoy.